Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down the big global stories, using the source material to give you a clear, no-nonsense look at what's really going on.
So, today we're diving into a pretty startling allegation that has sent some serious shockwaves around the world. A supposed drone attack aimed right at the Russian president's residence. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to look at the initial incident itself, then unpack the completely different stories coming from Russia and Ukraine. After that, we'll see how the rest of the world is reacting, and, the big one. What does this all mean for any chance of peace?
All right, let's kick things off at the very beginning and try to piece together what exactly is being claimed here.
So the whole thing boils down to this. You have Moscow and Kyiv, two nations at war telling two totally different stories. One side is claiming a direct, targeted attack happened. The other is saying, nope, this is a complete fabrication. It's a classic he said, she said. But the stakes could not be higher. So let's dig into Russia's side of the story first. What are they actually accusing Ukraine of? And what's really wild is the sheer scale of the accusation. Russia isn't talking about, one or two rogue drones. They're claiming a coordinated attack involving 91 of them. By throwing out such a big, specific number, Moscow is trying to paint a picture of a massive, sophisticated military operation, something that only another country could pull off.
And make no mistake, the Kremlin is not being subtle here. This is a formal, official accusation. They're pointing the finger directly at the government in Kyiv, accusing them of organizing an attempted strike on their head of state. It's about as serious as a claim gets.
Well, as you can imagine, Ukraine came back with an equally strong and direct response to these allegations. And this just lays it all out, doesn't it? You have two completely opposite realities being presented to the world. On one hand, a deliberate assassination attempt. On the other, a complete fabrication, a false narrative. There's just no middle ground between these two stories. And this wasn't just some press release. President Zelensky himself came out and publicly shot it down by calling it another round of lies. He's framing this not as a one-off event, but as just the latest example in what he calls a pattern of Russian disinformation. And here's the crucial part. Kyiv doesn't just deny it. They actually offer a motive for why Russia would make this up. They claim Moscow invented the story for two big reasons. First, to blow up any progress on peace talks, and second, to basically give themselves an excuse for future strikes on government buildings in Ukraine. Okay, so with accusations flying back and forth and tensions skyrocketing, it's no surprise that international leaders started to step in. Here, you see Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi essentially trying to de-escalate things. He's steering the conversation away from the who did what and back towards finding a peaceful solution, reminding everyone that diplomacy is really the only viable path forward here. And it wasn't all just public statements. Behind the scenes, this was being taken very, very seriously. The Kremlin even reported a direct phone call between the Russian and US presidents to discuss it. That tells you just how much potential this single incident had to spiral into a much bigger international issue. So, let's get to the bottom line. Why does this one incident, this one set of accusations, matter so much in the grand scheme of things? Because whether the attack was real or not, the fallout is very, very real. Russia almost immediately said it would have to rethink its position on peace talks, which could derail the whole process. It just dumps a whole new layer of tension on an already fragile situation. And, of course, it raises the terrifying possibility of retaliatory strikes, kicking off a dangerous cycle of escalation.
And that leaves us with this really tough question. In a war like this, narratives and information are just as powerful as any weapon. And when that happens, the line between what's real and what's not can get incredibly blurry. Maybe the key takeaway here is that to understand this conflict, you have to understand the battle for the story just as much as you understand the battle on the ground.